Hey y'all, welcome to Pleiadian Point of View. I'm Peyton with Peyton Energetics, and I'm a Pleiadian channel and starseed coach. So in today's video, the Pleiadians wanted to chat with us about how we can be of service in the world right now. Because a lot of us are looking around at all of the suffering that is happening in the world, and we wish we could do more. We want to know, how can we help? So the P's want to talk to us a little bit about some of the ways we can do that. But before we jump into talking about this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. Now, as light workers and starseeds, one of the things that a lot of us are very inspired and motivated to do is be of service in the world. A lot of us feel like that is why we are here, is to help the collective. But it can sometimes be a little confusing to know, how do we go about doing that? So the P's wanted to share a very simple way that you can be of huge service to the planet right now. And it's much easier than you would even imagine. According to the Pleiadians, one of the best things we can do right now to be of service on a global level is to just hold our frequency. Now, this is something that, of course, we talk a lot about in the spiritual community, the importance of holding our frequency. But what happens as we do this is we actually lift up the entire collective. But when we get really sucked into, all the stories of doom and gloom that are surrounding us these days, it's really easy to kind of lose our way. It's very easy to start matching the energy of the denser timelines that are collapsing around us, because it's just so hard as humans not to get sucked in to the fear, to the chaos, to the anger of some of the things that are being revealed in our world right now. So one of the most important things we can do as light workers and starseeds is to hold our frequency. And what that means is to try to stay neutral, no matter what happens. And when the P's encourage us to stay neutral, they know how hard this is. They know how tempting it is to get sucked into some of the stories that are playing out around us. But when we can stay neutral, what happens is we start to lift up everyone around us. Because when we slide into those very dense emotions of fear, anger, and powerlessness, we are actually feeding the negative events around us. So by staying neutral, what happens is we're holding our frequency. And that's the best way that we can be of service in the world right now. Because when we hold our frequency, we elevate the frequency of the entire collective. Because when you are holding your frequency, it's like you're in control of the thermostat in the room. Everyone around you has to rise up to meet you on your channel. But what happens usually is most of us will drop down and match the thermostat of the lower vibrational timelines. It's just kind of how we're designed as humans, is that the higher vibration, without thinking about it, tends to drop down. And the way we do that is we get sucked in to the doom and gloom stories, and we put ourselves in fear, in anger, in powerlessness. So one of the best ways that we can be of service right now is by being very aware of our vibration. But it can be a little challenging to look at the negative stories playing out and not get sucked into them. How do you do that? Well, what the P's always bring us back to is how reality is constructed. And they remind us that there is no single version of reality. So one of the reasons that we can get freaked out when we see some of these disturbing things happening in the world is because our 3D mind is going to try to tell us that that is reality, which of course puts us in fear, makes us feel powerless, because we don't want that scary thing coming into our experience, and we feel a little powerless to prevent it. But the way we turn this around is by remembering what the P's have taught us about how reality actually works. And that is, there's not a single version of reality. So that scary story that we just heard about isn't the only version of reality. Is there a version of reality where that is happening? Absolutely. But right next to that, available to you in the next second of your day, is a reality where that thing doesn't exist at all. And in between, there are infinite variations. So one of the ways that we can stay neutral about some of the negative things that are happening in the world by remembering how things actually work. There's not just one version of reality. So just because something is happening in a timeline Doesn't mean it has to happen in your timeline. But if we get upset about it, freaked out about it, mad about it, what happens is we match that timeline. But we do that using our free will to do that. So it is always your choice as to whether or not you match a particular story, a particular thing that's happening in the world. And you match it if you get mad at it, if you push against it, if you judge it. So what the P's encourage us to do instead, so that we are not gluing ourselves to the reality that has that terrible thing happening, is by staying neutral. When you stay neutral, you don't match the energy of what you don't want. And you stay on your higher timeline. But only you decide what to do with your vibration. You decide what you are going to energetically feed. So when you feel yourself starting to get concerned about what we're seeing in the world, and this is going to accelerate, y'all, as we start to see more chaos in the denser timelines. And as y'all know, because I've said this in so many videos, whenever I talk about the differences in the timelines, I'm never coming from a position of ego. We are never saying that one timeline is better or worse than another. They're just different. Different choices made by different souls. So we don't want to get into judgment with timelines. But when we start to see those scary things happening in the world, it can be very helpful and soothing to the ego mind to just bring yourself back to your knowledge that there are infinite realities, which means you don't have to match that thing that is happening. And one of the things that the P's like to tell us is we have so much disinformation in our world. We can't be sure that what we are being sold as this doom and gloom story is even happening. That's something that I bring myself back to a lot when I start to see some of these scary stories. The first thing that I ask myself is, how do I know this is actually real? Because unfortunately, our Earth game has been very, very based on deception, manipulation, secrecy, and so we don't actually know that what we're being told is the truth. So that's something else that can help you pull back a little bit before you have that very strong reaction to these stories we're being sold. Because a lot of the information we're being fed right now is just to keep us in fear. But you decide whether you accept that invitation. And so one of the things that can help you if you find yourself sliding into that fear, that anger, and we all do, y'all, it is hard not to do that. But one of the things that can help us a little bit ease up on that is just to remind yourself it's only one version of reality, and you decide whether to match its energy. Think of it as an invitation to a lower timeline, and you decide whether you accept that invitation. And so this is why the P's have been talking to us so much about the importance of holding our vibration. As we do that, we stay on our timeline. As we stay on our timeline, we require the entire world around us to rise up to meet us, which means we stay in control of the thermostat. So it's very important for us to keep that in mind as light workers and starseeds right now, because this is how we serve the world. This is how we change the world. But we have to do it by controlling our frequency. Only thing that we can control. So P's just wanted to share that with you today to help you navigate some of the scary stories that are floating around out there and that will continue to float around out there. You don't have to match their energy. You are always in control of the thermostat. So that is what the P's had for you in today's POV. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.